right, 18 minutes past 8 a.m. in the morning. You're right on time for Kirk in the morning, wherever you are watching us from. Welcome aboard. My name is Chris Sambo, and in the next few hours, we'll be talking matters to do with politics, what the president talked about yesterday in his first address presiding over a national holiday, and that is what makes our discussion this morning so many pledges that he made, including affordable housing, agriculture, how to revive the country's economy, as well as reforming the security sector. So much to talk about, big statements that came out yesterday, but we'll be taking a review of the major ones this morning. So welcome aboard wherever you are watching us from. Remember, we are streaming live on Facebook at Kirk TV Kenya and on YouTube at Kirk TV Kenya. You can also be part of this discussion. Send in your feedback, drop your messages. We'll be sampling them as we continue with this discussion. But as we always do, good morning wherever you are watching us from. And first of all, we take a look at what is making news at this hour. Of course, a highlight of what the president talked about yesterday, even as we get into our discussion this morning. So yesterday, President William Ruto called upon county government to work in collaboration with the national government to roll out the affordable housing program. Speaking in his maiden Mashujaa celebration, Ruto revealed that the number of housing units built in the year will increase from the current 50,000 to 250,000.
That we will provide quality climate-smart housing that Kenyans can buy with mortgages for as low as 5,000 shillings a month, to be made available through various home financing arrangements. Next week on Tuesday, I will break ground in this same constituency at the Kibera Soweto B in Nairobi for a housing project which will deliver thousands of social housing units. Going forward, we intend to collaborate with county governments to achieve a target of at least 5,000 units in every county. We have asked counties to identify land. We will provide infrastructure. We will put the roads. We will put the sewage system. We will connect water and electricity. And we will get developers who will develop the houses, and eventually we will get the resources for mortgage for homeowners to own units across our nation.
All right, and at the same time, the president revealed that the Hustler Fund, which was one of his campaign tools, will be launched in December 1st this year. The president said that the fund will be disseminated to business people at the bottom of the pyramid through groups and circles. The loans will attract a single-digit interest, and that the program will include a savings model. Listen in.
As part of that agreement, 4 million borrowers who had been blacklisted will be freed from the yoke of Credit Reference Bureau in the coming days. We have also secured an agreement with CRBs that they will abandon the punitive penalty of blacklisting borrowers and move to a credit scoring system that makes borrowers eligible for credit even as they work to improve their credit worthiness. Affordable rates being single-digit rates to individuals through chamas, groups, circles, and cooperatives. All borrowers in this platform will not only access affordable credit, but they will also participate in short-term saving plan and long-term pension program. Every saving made by borrowers on this platform will be merged by the government of Kenya on a 2-to-1 ratio to a level to be determined by the program. I will launch this fund credit and savings product on the 1st of December this year.
And while speaking at the Mashujaa Day as well, and talking about how he will revive the agriculture sector, President William Ruto said the government will avail 6 million fertilizer bags for long-range season planting, as well talking about rolling out fertilizer manufacturing in partnership with the East African countries. He also talked about doubling the land under irrigation to 1.4 million acres in 3 years. Listen in.
We have to increase agricultural productivity as a first step. We will support all farmers to access quality inputs such as seeds, fertilizer, and pesticides, among others, and also ensure that our farmers have access to extension services in order to improve farming skills. In the short term, we will continue with the fertilizer import program. But in the medium term, the government plans to have fertilizer manufactured in partnership with EAC countries in our region. On seeds, our government will work with local research institutions and both public and private sectors to scale up seed multiplication for all crops. However, irrigation is the ultimate solution in guaranteeing food security in our country. And to address this challenge, we are working on innovative investment mechanisms through public-private partnership to construct at least 100 dams. Consequently, it would be possible to progressively irrigate the 3 million acres already identified as irrigable land. In the next 3 years, the government plans to double the land under irrigation to 1.4 million acres. Of this, 200,000 acres will be under rice irrigation and 500,000 under other food crops. Rice production in Bunyala, the Tana Delta, Rahole in Garissa, Mwea and Ahero will take priority, as these are areas that have already mechanisms for us to upscale.
And that is what President William Ruto talked about in matters to do with reviving the country's agriculture as well as mitigating the drought in the country. What do you make of the President's speech yesterday? You can send in your feedback through our social media pages, Facebook at Kirk TV Kenya, and YouTube we are streaming live at Kirk TV Kenya. And that is where we begin our conversation this morning. But before that, I take a review of what is in the newspaper this morning, even as we get into our discussion. All right, and just taking a look at what the newspapers this morning have put as a big story in the top pages. Of course, it's what the president talked about yesterday. The Standard here talking about the hits and misses of Ruto's first big day. And I want to welcome my guest who is here in studio with me this morning. Biko Shoa is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya as well, and also political commentator. Just welcoming you this morning. Welcome, Sana Wakili.
Asante sana.
And just looking at the newspaper that you're holding and the same that I'm holding,
Yes.
the picture is one of the same person, that is the president.
Right.
And he talks about what he put out in the in his first Mashujaa day, presiding over the Mashujaa day. And the Standard newspaper talks about the hits, misses of Ruto's first big day. First of all, how do you make, or what do you make of Ruto's first address for to the country?
Thank you so much, Chris. Sitting down and listening to the president yesterday, and the new promises, I would want to call them new promises, because they are promises that the president gave during his campaign, and it appears like they were promises that had not been informed by the realities of being in government. That is the promises that were given during the campaigns. The government has now been, or rather this administration has now been in government for slightly over 1 month. And they must have now properly interacted with what government is. And with that interaction then comes a new realization that probably what they had promised Kenyans during the campaigns may not be doable with the being in government. So if you look at the promises that were given to Kenyans as of yesterday, as compared to whatever it is that was in the manifesto, it's slightly different. It's slightly different. There are issues that were missed in yesterday's speech, which were very predominant during the campaigns. Understandably so, because then there ought to be realignment. The promises back in the days during the campaigns were a little bit one-sided. The president now has, or the Kenya Kwanza administration now has a government to run. And so it has to incorporate ideas that were even initially not part of the ideas for the prosperity of the country. So I see an administration that is trying to realign not just its promises, but even its priorities, because there were a few things that had been promised by the Kenya Kwanza administration before they got into government, which have been dropped. And there are promises that were not there during the campaigns that have now been adopted. And it would be interesting moving forward to see how then the government would want to, bring in a hybrid of whatever it is that they had promised Kenyans, and even that which they had not promised Kenyans.
Of course, that talks about what he made as new promises, and the Standard newspaper talks about the hits and the misses, and in the hits on what the president addressed, it talks about he put out statements on how he's going to revive the agriculture, housing, affordable housing, access to credit, universal health care, digital superhighway, rule of law, and climate change. But he did not address the issues to do with the national healing, cost of living, historical injustices, gender inclusiveness, national debt, economy, wealth, and job creation. Those are some of the major things that he left out. But I want us to listen in to what he talked about in regards to the Hustler Fund, which has become the talk of the country, on how it's going to be executed and how different it is from the previous projects that have been done by the government in a similar manner. So let's listen in to what the president had to say in regards to the Hustler Fund, and then I'll seek to, what you make of that particular statement. Let's listen in.
Okay.
As part of that agreement, 4 million borrowers who had been blacklisted will be freed from the yoke of Credit Reference Bureau, free in the coming days. We have also secured an agreement with CRBs that they will abandon the punitive penalty of blacklisting borrowers and move to a credit scoring system that makes borrowers eligible for credit even as they work to improve their credit worthiness. Affordable rates being single-digit rates to individuals through chamas, groups, circles, and cooperatives. All borrowers in this platform will not only access affordable credit, but they will also participate in short-term saving plan and long-term pension program. Every saving made by borrowers on this platform will be merged by the government of Kenya on a 2-to-1 ratio to a level to be determined by the program. I will launch this fund credit and savings product on the 1st of December this year.
All right, and that is what the president talked about on the Hustlers Fund. He's talking about, we saw in the campaigns that he said that this money will be available to, small business people without any interest, that it will be money that will be funded by the government. But now he talks about, getting this money, but with a single-digit interest. That means that is an interest of below 10%. Yes. And as well, we've seen the Uwezo Fund that has been in the previous government, the Youth Fund, the Women Fund. We've seen some of the funds that have been done in the same manner before, and they have not succeeded as projected. Do you feel, or rather, do you think that what he's talking about, the Hustlers Fund, is going to make an impact besides what we've seen before on the Uwezo Fund and the Youth Fund?
Let me tell you one thing, Chris. It's not that Kenyans have not been saving before, and it's not like Kenyans do not understand that when they save or when they increase their savings, and especially with whatever mode of organization that they get themselves into, whether you are saving, whether you are doing your savings in the conventional or the mainstream banks, or whether you are doing it through the microfinances, or whether you're doing it through SACCOs, or the, you know, we cascade, if we cascade it down to the chamas. Kenyans understand that when you save, or the more that you save, then the more the eligibility, your eligibility in terms of borrowing. So it's not like it's a golden bullet that the president is coming in. It's whatever he's communicating to Kenyans is something that has been practiced by Kenyans over time, over the years. It is something that Kenyans have experimented with. And if you talk to Kenyans, like the other day, I was in my church, and we have this organization of, you know, we have like a men's conference of sorts. And when we were discussing on the modalities of how, okay, we've started like something where we are contributing like twice in a month. And when I was interacting with my church members, I realized that they are so vast with how, you know, with how this system works, that, you know, I was even shocked, because they were saying, oh, wakili wewe ndo utatuongoza. But then the contribution that I was getting from even persons that I thought probably did not understand how that system works, those people understand it quite well. What am I trying to say? What I'm saying is that whatever it is that for starters, Kenyans feel cheated. Kenyans feel cheated with this Hustlers Fund. The promise that was there previously at the time of the campaigns was that this money will be, you know, dished out freely to anyone who would come in and prove that they're a hustler. I don't know what modality the government was, or rather the Kenya Kwanza administration, was going to use in identifying who is a real hustler and who is not a real hustler. But of course, there must be an organization of sorts for one to understand that then this is someone that is deserving of the Hustlers Fund, and this is not someone that is deserving of the Hustlers Fund. But then back to the realities now, because you see now, we had promises before during the campaign trail. Now we've been hit, or rather this government has been hit with the reality, and it now has to come up with modalities to effectuate their promises. You have talked about Uwezo Fund, you've talked about the Youth Fund, you've talked about the Women Enterprise Fund. These are funds that had been proposed way back from even during Kibaki's time to try and ensure that we alleviate the situation that the youths find themselves in, the issue of unemployment and so on and so forth. When we came to the Women Enterprise Fund, there was a notion that, and that was the philosophy behind the Women Enterprise Fund, is that most women did not have easy access to credit, right? Because they are not economically empowered. They do not have securities to approach mainstream banks for purposes of, taking credit facilities and so on and so forth. And so the Women Enterprise Fund was created, and even without the promises of giving them free monies, they were supposed to organize themselves in a particular way, and that is why the issue of chama is associated more with women than men. So there was an opportunity for women to come together, put their resources together, however amount that they could put together, and then thereafter they could access a credit facility. And if you compare the Women Enterprise Fund as compared to the Youth Enterprise Fund, you'd realize that the Women Enterprise Fund was more successful than this one of the youths. Now, we don't have a categorization of these persons as either youth or women or whatever category it is. Now there's a new terminology in town that is called now the hustler. Now the hustler is a culmination of whether you are youth, whether you are old, whether you are a woman, or whatever the combination it is, or whatever the category it is. We have now, or everyone has now been grouped, or if you want to access this fund, you will now be grouped under a hustler. The implementation of that categorization of a hustler or the implementation of that fund is what would be of concern to me. Why am I saying so? I'm saying so because persons first, they first need to be organized. And then once they have been organized, they need to start contributing. Because remember, you will not be given these funds unless you prove that you are an organization of sorts, and that you have been in existence for some time, and that you have the capacity of repaying that money. So when the president says that he wants to start this fund on 1st of December, it means that it will only benefit the organizations or the groups that have been in existence for some time. Because remember, no one is going to give you monies if they don't have proof that you have the capacity to repay that money. The president talks about 50 billion. And that is what was of most concern to me. You know, when people talk about 50 billion, you may think that 50 billion is a lot of money. We are talking about more than 10 million hustlers. If you take 10 million hustlers and you give them 50 billion, actually it's like a drop in the ocean. I'm seeing a situation whereby each of the groups would be given a minimum of 5,000. If these people are to organize themselves, probably they'll be given 5,000. Chris, I can tell you that with 5,000, and I've over and above being an advocate, I'm also a businessman. I can tell you for a fact that 5,000 can start you no meaningful business that will give you meaningful returns.
To even repay that particular...
To even repay that money, the monies that you've been given. Unless if they say that now they are going to give people 5,000 for them to go and start Mahindi Choma business, or to go and start a business where they'll be, you know, trading in smokies and eggs. And I can tell you one thing for a fact, that probably even that market is full. You would want to start a smokies and egg selling business. You would find that that there's already someone who's grabbed that opportunity, not because they got monies from the Hustlers Fund, but because they can very well mobilize their resources and get 5,000 and start that business. Yes.
And that is a big concern in regards to the Hustlers Fund and what it's going to be, how it's going to be affected, and also how it's going to benefit the Kenyan people. But looking at the president's speech, he talked about a lot of major issues, and I want us to focus on one that he talked about. The city. Of course, when he was stepping up in that podium, the expectations of many Kenyans was, how are you going to address the current situation in the country, food shortage, agriculture, as well as also the existing drought. For like 3 years consecutively, some of the major areas in the country have not received any rain. Even counties, some 27 counties are facing severe drought. He talked about different strategies that he expects to, improve the country's agriculture. And he talked about for us to modify our agriculture, then we need to begin right from the start, and that is where we get to the farmers, talking about the implementation of additional 6 million bags of fertilizers to farmers. He talked about expanding the lands that have been under irrigation, talking about for the dairy farmers that the government will be returning the distribution of milk coolers and all that. If you listen to the president, he also talked about the drought in the country, and he said that if for us we need to overcome this particular situation, we have short-term solutions such as giving out food to the relief food to the affected counties, but for a long term, then we need to start thinking about afforestation. We need to plant trees. We need to get our forests back into space for us to mitigate this drought through what we've experienced as climate change. Listening into the president and from where the country sits right now, his strategies and all what he said yesterday, what do you make of the situation in the country in terms of the drought, the agriculture sector, food shortage, and the pledges that the president made?
Now, drought. It's quite unfortunate that in this day and age we still have Kenyans who are dying because of hunger. It's quite unfortunate. But even be that as it may, what is most important and which the president addressed in his speech yesterday was to segregate our or the government's strategy in terms of short-term and long-term strategies. In the short-term strategies, what we need to do, what the people in the drought-stricken areas want as of now is food and water. And that should be of priority to the government right now. Because you will not tell the person dying of hunger in Turkana or in Marsabit that, hey, look here, we are going to supply 6 billion bags of fertilizer. That is not of importance to them. Of importance to them right now is that we are dying of hunger and we need food, we need water. And it should be a concern to the government right now that we have more than 1 million of its citizens that are dying of hunger. Yeah, in those particular areas. What I would have expected of the president is a very strong commitment to ensure that its people are not dying of hunger as of now. And that the government would probably liaise with the county governments of those specific counties to ensure that its people are well catered for, even as they think of long-term solutions. Why am I saying so? We have a county like Isiolo, for instance, because they've been in the news in the recent past, talking about how its persons, or rather its citizens within that particular county, are dying of hunger. I would have expected that the president would have given a commitment that starting, let's say, as from today, or now that he gave his speech yesterday, he would have said that as from tomorrow, I want to have a sit down with the governors of the respective counties where they've been hard hit with the drought, to try and see, whether they can pool resources together when they were, or whatever mechanism they would have put in place to ensure that they alleviate the situation that is on the ground. Because all these people voted for, whether they voted for President Ruto, or whether they voted for the other coalition, but then they still voted for someone, and they had a legitimate expectation that with whoever was going to take government, then their situation would have been alleviated. So, insofar as the short-term solution is concerned, I would have expected that the president would have come out very strongly to ensure that within the next 1 or 2 months, that the people living within those particular countries do not continue suffering insofar as hunger is concerned, or rather the drought is concerned. In the long-term project, remember that when we are talking about matters food, we don't get food from heaven like manna during Jesus' time. This food is gotten from farming. The other day you saw a consignment of so many tons of rice that came from Ukraine, and Kenyans were asking themselves, how comes that Ukraine has had a war with Russia for the last 1 year, but then they still have the capacity to export millions of tons of grains to not only Kenya but to even other African countries. The realization that Ukraine, the atmospheric conditions in Ukraine are not very different from the climate, or let me say the climate. That the climate in Ukraine is not very different from the climate in Kenya, and yet we do not have the capacity to manufacture as much food for our people like Ukraine is doing to its people is actually appalling. We produce a lot of wheat. If you pass in Narok, Nakuru, and on your way to Western, you'd realize that there is a lot of wheat that we produce as a country. You would equally realize that this wheat is actually exported. And the question that then someone would want to ask themselves is, why are we exporting wheat while we do not have enough for ourselves? Why are we exporting wheat and then thereafter we import the same wheat for the utilization by Kenyans? There must be something wrong somewhere. But then even most importantly, for us to effectively do, because now the president has realized that if we are to rely on the rains, we can't manage to feed our economy. We first must start with the building of dams. And in his speech, he talked about something about dams.
100 dams.
100 dams. The question that I would want to ask you, Chris, in the last 20 years, during the Kibaki administration and the Uhuru administration, how many dams have we built as a country?
You talked about 25 dams in the last regime.
25 dams in the last regime. How does he plan to build? How does he plan to build 100 dams within 5 years or even within 10 years?
I think we can listen in to what the president said in regards to the drought. If my producer has that particular clip, we can just listen in to what the president talked about in regards to the drought situation in the country and how he's planning to mitigate the situation. We can listen in.
We will address the effects of this phenomenon as its ravaging effects at home and abroad. Our pastoralist communities have experienced scarcity of pasture due to prolonged drought, the worst in 40 years, and 3 years of absolute rain failure. As a result, we have lost 2.5 million heads of livestock owing to this very severe drought. Rising food prices have made an already bad situation worse. Elsewhere, communities in rural and urban areas across the country are equally struggling under the weight of high food prices and shortage of water. Without a doubt, climate change is complicating our roadmap towards socio-economic transformation and achievement of sustainable development goals. As we seek short-term measures to respond to the evolving situation, I have directed that a long-term and sustainable solution to the planetary challenges be put in place. The ultimate solution includes greening our country to more than 30% of tree cover by 2032.
The ultimate, solution is greening our country
by 30% tree cover.
How do you make of that? How possible is that?
I've listened to that speech and I was just laughing here because I remember at one point the deputy president, as he then was, when he said that rain doesn't come from the trees, rain comes from heaven. I remember that very infamous statement by, and that was a time when there was a lot of agitation towards having people come out of the Mau forest, and I think as at that time, the president now. It had not occurred to him that he would at one point be the president and probably be the person who the buck stops with insofar as addressing the issue of climate change is concerned. But then I'm happy that he has come to the realization that tree cover is actually very important. He's come to the realization that in the last that we are now facing a situation that Kenya has not faced in the last 40 years. And the thing that the president talks about planting, he talked about how many billion trees?
I think around 1 billion trees.
Yes, within
he actually in his calculation he talked about as big 50 million people. If we all planned around, I think 100 trees.
Yes, there's that calculation. Yes. There was that mathematics that he came up with, and it's a serious thing. And I would even want to speak to what Rigathi Gachagua, he is president, the modalities that he came about where Kenyans would do farming within our forest, but at the same time still encouraging the planting of trees. It's a very delicate balance that the government has to undertake. On one hand, to ensure that there is food on the table, that there is food security, and yet on the other hand, also ensuring that there is adequate tree cover within the country, or rather forest cover within the country. I can assure you one thing, Chris, that the amount of arable farm that or arable land that we have in this country does not necessitate us to invade the little forest cover that we have. I can assure you that if we utilized the arable land that we have as a country, we actually do not need to invade. We actually do not need to invade our forests. In fact, within the spaces that we have as farmers, we could, each one of us, just set aside like 30% of their pieces of land to even put up more tree cover. We don't need to get into the forest. The realization that the president is coming, that the president and his administration is coming to, is a realization that whatever it is that they promised Kenyans as at the time of their, during the campaigns, is not a promise that they can keep up to. From the president's speech yesterday, I saw a man who has now sat down with the technocrats. He's now sat down with the experts, and they've told him that for us to realize food security, for us to realize a country without drought, then there are certain measures that we have to take. He segregated it in phases, which is a good thing. The only thing that he needs then to do moving forward, for me, if I was to talk to the president, the only thing that he needs to do moving forward is to first ensure that we have enough water, and we can only do enough water if we are going to trap. Because I'm very sure, as sure as day follows night, that at one time in this country, we are going to have so much water that people will be dying of floods. We are going to have so much water that even Kenyans will not know what to do with that water. If it is the issue of dams, we have dams that have been pending for the last 5 years, for the last 10 years. It will be instructive of this government not to ignore the projects that had been started. Because there was a reason as to why those projects had been started, or there's a reason that informed the starting of those projects. What I would tell the president is, let us build on the projects that had been started by the previous administration before we can even start thinking of setting up new dams. Let us increase the capacity of the dams that we have right now. Because if you look, he's talked about Ahero, he's talked about other areas that have been doing, like, let's say, rice irrigation for some time.
Bunyala.
Like Bunyala. We thank God that the floods in Bunyala have been managed over time. But then, do they have the capacity, or do those dams have the capacity to ensure that there is continued supply of food or continued supply of rice from, let's say, Bunyala and Awasi and all that? The government has to strengthen the systems that are there before they start coming up with new systems. That is what I would tell the president.
Which is one of the biggest factors, and looking at what the vetting process of the cabinet secretaries. Today we expect the vetting of the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture. Of course, we wait to hear what he'll highlight in regards to the same that was made by President William Ruto yesterday. The Water and Sanitation and Irrigation, Cabinet Secretary was vetted last week, the day before yesterday, and brought out some very critical elements in regard to the same. But away from that, the President, in one of his misses, he did not address matters to do, with the cost of living, the high cost of living, historical injustices, as well as the national debt and economy and wealth. And he also didn't talk about largely on national healing. We've come out from a politicking season, and there is so much, if you even if you look at yesterday's Mashujaa Day, it was not as full as would be expected. That one perhaps should argue being a repercussion of the outcome of the general election, but largely that missed out in his speeches. In comparison to the praises that he made about winning the August election. Even my producer tells me we have about less than 10 minutes, but even as we talk about all that, let's address his misses. What do you feel he left out, in making his maiden address to the country, when every Kenyan is looking upon what he makes as his first submission to the country?
The very first thing that I would have expected the president to have addressed. Mm-hmm. Remember that the difference between the Kenya Kwanza coalition that came in number one in the presidential race and the Azimio coalition that came in number two was a difference of less than 1 million votes. Mm-hmm. And we are talking about a population or a country that has a population of more than 50 million Kenyans. And so we are just from an election that was hotly contested. What I would have expected, and even the tone that I would have expected from the president as of yesterday, was that one of having, of bringing everyone together. I was expecting a president that would, much as he invited every other person to work with him, I would have expected him to have come. I expect the president to have come out more forcefully, to invite every other person, to work with him. In the spirit of the whole issue about national healing. And unfortunately, that never came out. That never came out very strongly. It is even more unfortunate that it appeared, and this is my opinion, that the president is still chest thumping after his win. He's still talking about, because you see, at the end of the day, there are some terminologies that were only good during the campaigns, which I would have expected that as a national leader that he is right now, he's going to drop some terminologies and just embrace every other person. The fact that the stadium yesterday, or rather the garden yesterday wasn't packed to capacity, mm-hmm. like has happened in previous national functions, should actually speak to the disunity that is there in this country. That even Kenyans never felt obliged to attend a serious function like Mashujaa Day yesterday is something that should speak to the president, and even inform him that this country is not as united as he thinks. So it would be instructive of the president to then pull every Kenyan towards his side. If he expects to achieve his agenda, the agenda that he has set for this country. The issue of the cost of living, is an issue that the president talked to mm-hmm. very passionately during his campaigns. And there were even promises that within the first 100 days or within the first 1 month, mm-hmm. the cost of unga would have gone down from 200 to 70 shillings. That the price of the price of sugar, the price of fuel would have gone down. It is something that the president deliberately avoided yesterday, mm-hmm. and which to me is actually quite unfortunate, mm-hmm. because at the end of the day, and I remember these are conversations that we've had in these studios, and we were telling ourselves, it matters not how much we are, for instance, importing fuel. Mm-hmm. At what cost we are importing fuel. What Kenyans are most interested in is what is the cost of fuel at the pump. Kenyans want to understand why we have so many geothermal power plants in this country, or how we have so many hydroelectric power plants in this country, and yet the price of electricity is still on the high. Kenyans want to understand why we are producing, why we are producing a lot of wheat within this country, and yet the price of wheat flour is still very, very expensive on the shelves. This is something that the president and his administration and his team had promised Kenyans that it would be seeing into it and that it will drastically go down. Unfortunately, he avoided that topic as of yesterday. The issue of gender inclusivity, the president, I remember during his campaigns was saying that in his government, 50% of the positions that he's going to allocate to the people who will be serving under him would be of a particular gender, and he insisted that they would be women. Unfortunately, even in the appointments or in the nominations for appointments that we have seen currently, he's fallen below his promises to Kenyans. So I think it's something that he needs to address moving forward, so that we do not have a country whereby politicians promise Kenyans certain things for purposes of getting their way into politics, and then thereafter they can't keep to their promises. The issue of national debt. The issue of national debt is
quite crucial.
Is quite crucial. Remember, some of these debts are debts that were acquired during Kibaki's time. Some of these debts are debts that have been acquired during during Uhuru's time. I would have expected that probably in his speech the president would have told Kenyans that probably they are going to have a sit down with the donors. They are going to have a sit down with our funders to renegotiate the debts that we were given, and probably extend the maturity of these loans, or probably renegotiate the interest rates that had been given to Kenyans. But then he deliberately avoided that topic. I don't know how he's going to address it. Probably he's going to address it silently, and because it is something that he was very vocal about during his campaigns. I do not understand why he suddenly has gone silent about it, or whatever it is that has informed the same.
And I think talking about that, it's something that came out even in the vetting of the Treasury CS, and he largely faced a bigger task in addressing such a matter which is very big for the country. But all the same. Let's talk about, just briefly, because I'm told we have around 1 minute. Yes, 1 minute that is left for us, to wind up this particular session.
Yes.
As quickly as possible. The reason why we're having a compressed session is because the vetting of the cabinet secretary is coming up shortly.
Yes.
The entire process. What would be your final remarks in regards to the entire process of vetting the nomination of those members by the president? The vetting so far has largely been successful. We've had to interrogate the various nominees to really understand their capabilities for the positions that they seek to serve Kenyans under. We've had from the many interviews that I've listened in. We've had a committee that is actually very competent. I would want to trust that for the nominees that are remaining, that we are going to ask them the hard questions over and above just being sensational about their level of wealth. The committee has to be very focused, or has to be very deliberate to ask of the competencies of the people that we are giving to run the various government ministries. We would be more interested in knowing the capabilities of the people that we are putting to be in charge of those those particular ministries. If it is the issue of health, like the vetting that happened the other day, we would want to understand. We have someone who we want to be in charge of the health system, and the health system is one of the key ministries that we have in this country, or even the world over. Do they have the capacity? If it is the issue of being the CS of finance, do they have the technical know-how? And I'm very happy that unlike in the previous regimes where you would find someone who is an engineer and he's placed in the docket of health,
we've tried as much as possible, and or rather the president has tried this time around to ensure that the nominees that he has selected are people who are in line with whatever ministries that it is that he has nominated them to serve as cabinet secretaries, which I think is a good thing.
Right, and we wait to see what comes out of the today's voting process,
yes,
which will be up I think around 9:30 a.m. But thank you so much this morning, for making time to have this particular discussion, and that is where we wind up this particular session on matters to do with politics and the state of the nation, talking about President Ruto's pledges on the Mashujaa Day. What do we expect next? Of course, we wait to see what unravels from his speech and his pledges to the country. We are taking a very short commercial break, but when we return right back, we'll be coming with our guest artist of the day. Miriam Samuel is already in our studio, so we'll be giving you a taste of our music shortly before we cross over live to get the proceeding of the vetting today. The first person to be vetted this morning will be agriculture nominee, who is Mithika Linturi. Take a short break, stay with us, we'll be right back in a short while.
We welcome your feedback on our programming. For questions or comments, kindly get in touch with us via email info@kirktv.org, SMS 011 220044, or call us on 0794 588 054.
Good journalism is bold, in-depth, unique, captivates, reflects, and impacts. To quench your thirst for exceptional stories that are about you, from you, and for you, Kirk TV presents itself as the hub of feature stories. Ranging from health and environment,
either there is extreme drought or extreme floods, and these will affect people.
Religion and politics.
And the man looked at the boy, looked at the mother, and told the boy, going forward, don't wet the bed again.
There come a time when the nation is more important than a individual.
Education and socio-economic issues.
Nasaidika kwa sababu nikishona moja mbili nauza, napata kitu ya kulisha watoto.
I have met with other tribes which I have never met before.
To other stories that touch on your day-to-day life.
Ja ndio iko mingi zaidi. Tafadhali mnasaidia maji ya nyazi.
Tinga amekanyanga kila kitu.
Hatujawahi kuona mabadiliko yote kuhusiana na serikali ya kujengea sisi.
Kwanza kitu naweza omba tu nishikiliwe tu pande ya masomo tu ya watoto.
Kirk TV, the hub of feature stories.
In our challenging time, in our difficult times, in our times that we are down, we need to look upon the Lord. And David said, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Who shall I be afraid of?" David realizes that God is his strength. If I wonder what it means for God as our strength, it means that God is there to support us. God is there to offer support. When we are weak, when we are tired and about to give up, we can always turn to God and obtain strength from him.
Wasiojua shukrani, niwe yule mmoja wa wale 10 aliyerudi miguuni pako Yesu na maabudu na kuinua mikono yake, ishara ya shukrani kwa yale uliyomtendea yule. Moyo wangu usichoke, sifa mpe Yesu. Moyo wangu nafsi yangu, hesabu baraka zako moja kwa moja, utaona jinsi Yesu alivyo mwema kwako. Mavumbi amekukung'uta kung'uta, kwenye shimo la utelezi kakutoa, fedha akaondoa, heshima kakuvisha, magonjwa sugu kaponya. Yesu ni mwema. Mungu wa ishara, nina imani nawe, weka agano, nina imani nawe, wa ishara, wa ishara, wa ishara, imani nawe, tupatie weka agano, nina imani nawe, Mungu wa agano, nina imani nawe, historia imethibitisha unatunza ahadi, hakuna neno litokalo kwako bure, wewe unatimiza, ukisema unatenda, mwaminifu milele. Yesu Mungu wa ishara, Mungu wa ishara, nina imani nawe, pasua bahari, weka agano, tuliza mawimbi, nina imani. Usiwe kama wale 9 wasiojua shukrani, niwe yule mmoja wa wale 10 aliyerudi miguuni pako Yesu na maabudu na kuinua mikono yake, ishara ya shukrani kwa yale uliyomtendea yule. Moyo wangu usichoke, sifa mpe Yesu. Moyo wangu usichoke, sifa mpe Yesu. Moyo wangu, moyo wangu, moyo we, sifa mpe Yesu. Moyo wangu usichoke, sifa mpe Yesu. Ni mwema kwa hali zote we, sifa mpe Yesu. Usichoke, sifa mpe Yesu. Hima nafsi yangu, hesabu baraka zako moja kwa moja, utaona jinsi Yesu alivyo mwema kwako. Mavumbi amekukung'uta kung'uta, kwenye shimo la utelezi kakutoa, fedha akaondoa, heshima kakuvisha, magonjwa sugu kaponya. Yesu ni mwema, moyo wangu usichoke, sifa mpe Yesu. Moyo wangu, moyo wangu, moyo we, utukufu kwa Yesu. Sifa mpe Yesu. Nafsi yangu inuka na sifa, Bwana ni mwema, rafiki Yesu. Sifu Yesu daima, amekutendea makuu, moyo we, la 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 la, sifa mpe Yesu.
Right. Karibu sana Miriam kwenye studio. I know people wamesikia ngoma, and it's a very good song. Tell us about that song Moyo. Even as you also introduce yourself, kuna watu maybe wanakuona mara ya kwanza, people who are seeing your music for the first time on our TV station, and as well it's the first time wanakuona maybe hapa kwa TV. Tell us about yourself, you introduce yourself, and then you tell us about your song umetoka kucheza Moyo. It's a very good song.
Okay. Greetings this morning, our viewers. My name is Miriam Samuel. I'm saved. I'm a gospel artist. Not artist, even a minister of the Word of God. And I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a social worker professionally. What else? I'm a worshiper. Kanisani pale nafanya worship and praises. So generally mimi ni minister of the word of God. About moyo.
Music.
Moyo ni wimbo ambao unaongelea tu makuu ya Mungu. Nilikuwa tu nimeketi na tafakari yale Mungu amenifanyia katika maisha yangu. Maybe a story of another day. I was healed cancer. And imekuwa a very big inspiration in my music. That my own story. It really inspires me to just live for God, to do things for God, to sing, just to praise God. Yeah, so moyo ilikuwa ninatafakari. Mungu ameniponya magonjwa sugu. Ukisikia hapo ninataja, amekukunguta mavumbi, kuna wakati sikujipenda, kuna wakati nilikuwa ninajidharau, lakini Mungu akanirestore. So moyo is all about that. Yes.
Kabla tuongelee safari yako ya muziki, before we even talk about your journey, mali ulianzia hadi mali umefika, umetaja something that is very big. You talked about God healing you of cancer.
Yes.
Can you tell us about, tuambie a short, experience in the transformation until now you can proclaim that ni Mungu alikutendea?
Yes, I was only 10. Not long time ago, but long. But when I was diagnosed with the cancer of the kidney, ilikuwa imenisumbua. Like all year nimetaabika bila kuelewa what is really disturbing me, ama what is really affecting my health. And eventually, after trying so many hospitals, trying so many things, including herbals, finally they realized that I had cancer of the kidney. And I had to undergo that process. Your process yote ya cancer. For anyone who has been there, you really know that it is a tough journey. So the cancer had advanced. It had advanced it was stage 4. It had advanced from the kidney going up to the lungs. And so the doctors tried very much to control what had gone to the lungs. Sababu haikuwa mingi sana kwa lungs, but the kidney was completely affected. So they removed the kidney, and I went through chemotherapy. Hizo ni 12 doses. That is a whole year of kudungwa dawa kila mwezi. And chemotherapy is not a joke. Chemotherapy is something, ukidungwa leo, asubuhi una nywele. Nywele zako zote zinaanguka, unatapika, unaisha. Yani it is kama ugonjwa by itself. Yeah, so I went through all that. I also went through radiotherapy, ile kuchomwa ndio hizo cells ziamke tena. And after that, it took me like 13 good years going in and out of Kenyatta National Hospital for treatment until I was declared cancer free. Yes.
And talking about the declaration of the mali ambapo uliambiwa kwamba hauna ugonjwa tena, tell us about that moment. Hiyo moment ya mwisho, of course ni safari ndefu hiyo, tuambie hiyo moment ya mwisho kwamba umepitia all these challenges and then the final declaration unaambiwa kwamba hauna kitu ambacho kilikuwa kinakusumbua. Well, we know as well in most cases cancer is not treatable.
Yes.
If kama ime advance sana, but you're saying that finally ukaambiwa hauna. Tell us about that final experience.
It is an experience that I will never even forget, because mimi nilikuwa nimeenda tu hospitali kama normal way. I was just going there with my x-ray. Every time I was going back to the hospital, I had to have x-ray and blood test. Hizo vitu mbili ndizo walikuwa na monitor sana. As I remember going there and the doctor is telling me, Miriam, tumekuexamine for so many years and we think tunakukumbusha ulikuwa mgonjwa. Though I lost kidney, I have one kidney. I've been surviving with one kidney. But they told me that tunakuachilia, enda uishi vizuri, ukule vizuri na monitor your how behavioral. Unajua kuna zile behaviors zinaweza rudisha ugonjwa tena kwa mwili. So waliniambia ni monitor vitu kama hizo, diet na my behaviors, how I live, because I have one kidney na in case of anything nitai lose tena. So it was turning point, yani ile kuamua Mimi sikuwa natarajia. Mimi ulikuwa niulize 5 years to come mtakuwa wapi, nikwambie hiyo Mungu anajua, because I thought the cancer will come back na itanimaliza. But now they are here telling me that I'm cancer free. So hapo ndio niliamua Mungu nitakuishia forever. Yes.
Na kutokana na hiyo experience yote hadi mahali ambapo uliambiwa hauna cancer, what lesson nini ilikufunza? All that experience ilikufunza nini?
Ilinifunza kutegemea Mungu. Because all through I was like, sasa Mungu ni wewe tu unajua. Sasa hii ni cancer. Nimeona wenzangu wakienda, huyu alikuwa rafiki, huyu alikuwa rafiki, wamekufa nikiwaangalia hivi, but you must spare. So I think umenispare for a purpose. So ilinifunza kumtegemea Mungu, na ilinifunza pia unapoambiwa uko mgonjwa cancer, usianze kukufa mapema. Fuatilia maagizo ya daktari. Jua kuna siku moja hivi nishaikosa kwenda hospitali. Ilianza wiki, ikaanza siku, ikaanza miezi, ikaanza miaka. I was there on time. So hizo mambo mbili zilinifunza kutegemea Mungu na kufuata maagizo ya daktari ni muhimu. Yes.
Kwa hivyo lazima ujisaidie ndo Mungu pia akusaidie.
Mungu anasaidia kabisa, lakini hata wewe fuata maagizo. Uko na headache, tumeze painkiller, Mungu atapona. Si painkiller na kuponya, is God who heals. Yes, but ukikosa kufuata some instructions kuna consequences. Yes.
Alright. Na hiyo ni safari ndefu ambayo imekufunza makubwa, na tunashukuru Mungu kwamba uko mzima.
Amen.
And your music is also doing well. Tuambie sasa muziki yako ukaanzia wapi? Nimeona pia producer wangu pia anauliza kwamba ameona kuna ngoma ambazo umeimba ama muziki ambazo umeimba kwa lugha ya Kikamba kuanzia kitambo. Safari yako ya muziki ilianzia wapi?
Safari yangu ya muziki officially nilianza 2018. Hapa mwaka ikiisha 2018 December hapo. That's when I released my first song. Inaitwa Sifa. And hii ilikuwa purely thanksgiving. Juu nilikuwa nimeishi nikisema yes niliponywa. Na niliambia Mungu nitamuishia. Sasa nitatumia njia gani? I was a shy person. Nilikuwa na mtu niko low self esteem. So singesema ati nasimama nianze kupreach. So nilitaka pahali nitaweza kufanya kazi ya Mungu nikiwa sisumbuki kusimama mbele ya watu. So my first song nilirecord 2018. Inaitwa Sifa. Ukisikiza vizuri nasema kunyamaza sitoweza, mtu wa ndani ataongea. Maana mimi ni ushuhuda, nitaimba sifa zake. Yeah, that's where I began. Yes.
Na kuanzia 2018 na si kitambo sana.
Si kitambo.
It's about 5 years. The journey from 2018 mahali ulianzia, ukatoa Sifa, ukakuja ukatoa Wayonge, ukakuja ukatoa ngoma nyingine Watosha. Na ukasonga mbele, ukasonga kisha ukafika mahali ambapo umefika sasa. Hiyo safari ya muziki ya 5 years unaweza zungumzia aje kama mwanamuziki?
Imekuwa very interesting. Imekuwa journey ya kusoma, kulearn from others, kukua mentored, yani kusikiza mawaidha, na Mungu amenisaidia. Amekuwa akinitoa from one ladder to another. Ukiangalia pia muziki yangu imekuwa gradual. Ukiangalia video 2019 si kama video ya 2020, si kama pia hiyo ya 2018, na si kama yenye nimetoa sasa hivi. Imekuwa gradual journey, Mungu taking me from one step to another, like climbing a ladder. Yes, that's how it has been.
And talking about climbing the ladder, tunaweza sikiza Sifa tuone mahali ilianzia na tuone pia sababu umesema video ya 2022 tofauti, na acha tuone Sifa alafu tusikie muziki yake ya kwanza kabisa yenye alimba from the start.
Sifa zako nitangaze ukuu wako, nitaonyesha urembo wako, maana mimi ni ushuhuda. Kunyamaza sitoweza, mtu wa ndani ataongea. Ukuu wako Bwana haulinganishwi. Sifa zote ni zako, sauti yangu ikuimbie, nafsi yangu ikuhimidi, vyote vyangu ni vyako. Sifa zote ni zako, sauti yangu ikuimbie, nafsi yangu ikuhimidi, vyote vyangu nakupa. Umekuwa mwema kwangu, acha nikuimbie. Kwanza
Sifa. Ukiangalia the music mali ulianzia, hata mtu akiangalia hizi sema kwamba hii ilikuwa ngoma yako ya kwanza kutoka, kwa sababu pia level yake, hata my producer pia anafanya hizo kazi ya muziki, nafikiri anaona hiyo muziki it's not same as mali watu wanaanziaga. Na tuseme kwamba ulianzia mahali juu ukasonga. Kwako wewe as an artist ume get into the Kenyan industry, gospel industry or other gospel music industry, umeona how it has been going on for the past few years. Unaweza zungumziaje nafasi ya wanamuziki wa gospel hapa nchini?
Sisi tunasaidiwa na Mungu. And watu wanajaribu, they are really trying, because unajua gospel ni tofauti. Yani I mean the way muziki inaproduciwa ni tofauti. Lakini ukiangalia wanamuziki wa Kenya wanajaribu wazavyo, ila tuendelee kujikaza. Mimi naweza sema hivyo, wanajaribu. Tunaona wengine hata wanaenda kwa live music, tunaona wengine wanatoa urban music, kuna wale wako kwa benga, na zote zinahubiri kuhusu neno la Mungu. So nafasi yao si ati ni mbaya, wanafanya kitu in the industry. Yes.
Na kuna swali ambalo naambiwa nikuulize kwamba kama wanamuziki wa gospel, zingine huwa mnakosa kueleka, you get misunderstood, because you're doing gospel music, but at the same time you also have to balance with the same music in the side of utapata pesa aje, ndio pia uendelee na huduma yako and all that. You get misunderstood that huyu anaimba gospel industry. I was talking to an artist manager some other time, akaniambia msanii wangu wa gospel ameitwa mahali a perform, na ile kanisa ama mahali ameitwa perform, kwa sababu yeye ni msanii wa gospel, the compensation is not there. Umeperform, umemaliza, lakini vile ulikuja ndio vile utarudi, while you have ministered through music that you have invested in. So pale ukianza kudemand kwamba naomba nipewe changu, wanaanza kuona huyu msanii anaimba ngoma za muziki na bado anatamani pesa. That misunderstanding unaweza zungumziaje from your own experiences maybe, ama kwa vile wewe unaiona?
Hata mimi nimepitia hayo. Kuna kwingi unaitwa na unaambiwa asante, umetubariki sana, Mungu akubariki nyumbani. Na kwa sababu mimi haja yangu ilikuwa nifikie watu, mimi naenda tu na ninasema Mungu atanireward in other ways, of which God rewards. Sincerely, kama ulikuwa umeenda pale ubariki watu, juu hii ni huduma, kama unaichukulia kama huduma. Lakini niko sure kuna wengine pia wanasema mimi siwezi, kwanza kabla hujatuma deposit hapa, si banduki hapa. Siko baya, sababu pesa ni kila kitu. Isipokuwa Mungu ndiye kila kitu, lakini tuko duniani, pesa ni kila kitu. Umetumia transport, una produce music na pesa. So mtu kama huyu akiitisha pia hafai kuwa misunderstood. Ile nasema mimi kusaidia ile yangu, haya yote umezungumzia nimeyapitia. Nimeenda kwingi, ninaimba, ninarudi, na ni vizuri kama iko. Jaribu tu mpe wasanii kitu, sababu wataenda nyumbani, alispend kila kitu alikuwa nacho, anaenda nyumbani kutafuta hata sapa hana, na amekuja amewabariki. Kwa hivyo mimi naweza wazungumzia, wakikuja kwenu, try to give them something, at least to cater for their bills.
Ni pia wanafaidika kwa namna nyingine.
Yes, sababu tumewabariki. Yes. Umeniambia asante, enda nyumbani, alafu na unajua naweza kuwa sina courage ya kukwambia mimi sina fare. Sasa nitarudi aje ama nini? Naweza kuwa sina, nitangangana pengine nifulize, na sikuwa nifai kufuliza. So tuangalie, juu hata Biblia imesema our gifts zitatucreatea nafasi nyingine, zitatukalisha na wafalme, and all that they will also reward us. So tutariwardiwa wapi? Kama tukija kwenda kutupigia makofi tu.
Na wewe kama msanii, ngoma zako ni mzuri sana. Most of your music are doing quite well. I've looked at all your music, none of them is below 10,000 views.
Yes.
And talking about umeanza 2018, that's a very big achievement. The new song Mungu Ishara is around getting to 75,000. Wewe kama msanii, ni msanii mgani unaweza ukaangalia ukasema kwamba ungetamani kufanya kazi na yeye sana?
Ni wengi. Nilikuwa nikitamani.
Taja tu watatu ama wanne.
Watatu. Nilikuwa nikitamani kufanya na Evelyn Wanjiru. Nimetamani pia Eunice Njeri. nimetamani Masimasika, nimetamani Halimukwana, Guardian Angel. So kuna wale watu wanatia bidii, si ati sisi hatutii bidii, wanatia bidii pia kila kuchao, wametangulia na they are doing, hawajui kuwa irrelevant. Hakuna siku moja utaamka usikie huyu amedivert from the word. They are relevant every morning. So I desire. Yeah.
Lazima kuna mmoja utafanya kazi na yeye kati yao umetaja. Sikwambii ni nani, lakini yupo mmoja utafanya kazi na yeye. Amen. Let's talk about Mungu wa ishara. Umesema kwamba kuna watu wanatia bidii ama kina Guardian Angel, Jonas Njeri, Evelyn Wanjiru, wote hao wanatia bidii, lakini kwa kazi yako mpya Mungu wa ishara umetia bidii kabisa, video, audio, kila kitu. Tuambie about Mungu wa ishara, the composition of the song as well, the production of the song and the inspiration up until Mungu wa ishara ikaja kutoka 2 weeks ago.
Mungu wa ishara tuanzie kwa composition of it. Ni kama I was inspired by the season. Kuna mambo mengi imefanyika in the past few tuko na new president, hiyo ni ishara. But in the process I was nilikwambia most of the time I'm inspired by my own story. Mimi ukaa chini na naanza kutafakari. Tangu niseme I'm giving up ama sita make it, Mungu amenisaidia kiwango kigani. So hiyo ni kitu moja ilini inspire. Kwanza kwamba ni Mungu wa ishara kweli, aliahidi ataniponya, ameniponya, aliahidi atanibariki. Kuna time nilikuwa na struggle na shindwa, nitaiona hata wimbo yangu inacheza kwa TV hata moja. Saizi struggle haiko, hata zile inatoka unapata presenters piga simu, ngoma ikitoka hivi I'll be the first to air. Hiyo ni kama kikombe kinafurika. So ni mambo mengi sana Mungu amenifanyia. So it's just like a testimony. But in the process hata nikienda kwa kuproduce, I was telling my producer anaitwa PK Tunes, nikimwambia producer, hii wimbo iko kwa wakati wake kabisa. Hebu ona Evelyn Wanjiru amehold mtoto after 10 years of waiting. Huyo Mungu ni wa ishara sana. Ni Mungu wa ishara sana. So those are some of the things which were inspiring me kufanya Mungu wa ishara. Yeah.
Na naweza sema kwamba PK Tunes amefanya kazi nyingine safi sana.
Yes.
Yes. Even my producer anakubali hiyo ngoma imeweza.
Yeah.
Hiyo Mungu wa ishara ngoma ambayo kwamba imepick vizuri sana. Mipango gani ambazo pia tunatarajia kutokana kwa
more music, more live music. Sijui kama umewatch hata iweje, ni live music nilifanyanga last year. Hata I released this year early. So expect more music. Yes. Coming from
baada ya Mungu wa ishara.
Baada ya Mungu wa ishara sisimamii hapo.
Atakupa ishara.
Kuna muziki ziko lined up na kuna zingine zitafanywa. Niko na mpangilio mizuri sana ya hii kazi ya Mungu. Yes.
Kabla nafikiri tunasimama ndo tuperform Mungu wa ishara, lakini kabla hapo maybe your final words kwa mtu ambaye anakuangalia anasema amesikiza safari yako na akaweza kuona mahali umetokea, mahali umetoka wapi. Na wewe kama msanii hujaanza kitambo, lakini kuna mambo umezingatia and your music is now coming out strongly. For you, what would be your final, advice or talk to maybe someone who is watching you needs encouragement? And also you tell them where they can find your music, where they can find you on social media and anywhere where they can find your music.
Okay, wacha nianze pale unaweza pata muziki naweza sahau. Muziki wangu utaupata YouTube. Please enda YouTube, andika Miriam Samuel Kenya. Kuna Miriam Samuel wengi, nimeongeza Kenya mbele. Miriam Samuel Kenya, utapata muziki yangu hapo. Subscribe. Ukisubscribe, hizo muziki nimesema ziko lined up. Utakuwa wa kwanza kuziona. Ikitokea nakwambia Miriam ameweka kitu kipya pale. Kwa social media naitwa Miriam Samuel Music. Miriam Samuel Music, Facebook, IG, Twitter, hata TikTok niko sana pale, nachanganya muziki na kichekesho vidogo. Lazima to take care of the mental health, sababu ukikosa kupata kitu ya kukufurahisha pia sometimes unazijipata na
Ideas za
stress.
muziki zitapotea.
Na pia si idea sana ni hapa nje kuna mtu anahitaji kicheko. Roho yake imefinyika na maybe akiona kicheko inamwamsha tena. So niko kwa hizo platforms, Miriam Samuel Music, other platforms, but on YouTube Miriam Samuel Kenya. Kwa wewe mwenye unaanza, anza kwanza. Yes, anza. And when you start, Mungu atakusaidia. In the process ya kuanza, kuwa na mtu anaweza mentor, tafuta mentor. Juu saa zingine unapata hujui pali utaanzia ama utaelekea wapi. So you need someone to direct you. Na still ukianza, anza pia like mtu si mtu anaanza, like mtu anaona mbali. Juu ukianza on a higher level, utapata kuendelea mbele haitakuwa ngumu. Juu sometimes unapata mtu ako like, juu ni kuanza, wacha niweke tu lyrics nirushe kwa YouTube. Kuna vitu watu wanapenda kuona sana. Kama kuna kitu ya kuona na kusikia, watu watachagua ya kuona sana. So unaweza jaribu uanze kwanza na ka video kazuri pale na it will pick. Then utie bidii kwa kumarket. Marketing is everything. You can use your social media very very well. Facebook usiweke tu picha pekee. Market your music there. And with time, if you are doing good thing, people will like it. Yes.
Asante sana. Na kabla tusimame tufanye Mungu wa ishara, nitakuwa nikisoma some of the messages that your viewers wametuma hapa, na maybe your fans na viewers. Na moja hapo inaitwa Priscilla Leland na Mosasi. Unasema kwamba more grace and more blessings dada.
Thank you.
Priscilla anakutakia kila laheri. And then there's Minister Silas says this is encouraging. Miriam Samuel Music hongera. And goes ahead. Silas Samis talks about I'm tuned in from County 001 Mombasani kule. Anasema kwamba Miriam umebariki wengi and you are a blessings to many. Winfred Wango Winner says the testimony of cancer healing gives me great faith in me that I will make it in all situations. And she goes ahead to say the moment I heard this song, my heart healed. I was bitter due to the painful things I was going through. Miriam, God bless you and carry a different grace of healing. John Mutua anasema Mungu wa ishara, naipenda sana. Mungu wa ishara ndio hii inacheza hapa. We will be playing that as we finalize. Alafu anasema Miriam Samuel, Mungu akubariki sana, nimekusalimia. Umesalimia wafans wako na coach na pia viewers who are watching from different parts of the country. And that is where we end up. Tunamaliza so tutakuwa tukiperform Mungu wa ishara. Nafikiri tutasimama tu tumaliza tukiperform Mungu wa ishara. Because you can remember you can stream in this interview, utaipata kwenye Facebook live Kirk TV Kenya, na kwenye YouTube pia utaipata at Kirk TV Kenya. Manake coming up shortly is the vetting of the cabinet nominees. Kwa hivyo tutafanya Mungu wa ishara tumalize, tukuache uweze kujionea mambo yako vipi. But for now, I'm Chris Sambo and goodbye. See you next week on Friday. Tunaweza fanya sasa Mungu wa ishara. How sio?
Kabisa.
Mungu wa ishara. Producer tuko Mungu wa ishara.
Historia imethibitisha unatunza ahadi, hakuna neno litokalo kwako bure, wewe unatimiza, ukisema unatenda, mwaminifu milele. Yesu wa ishara, Mungu wa ishara, tuliza mawimbi, nina imani nawe. Nashuhudia, nimethibitisha. Nina ujasiri nawe, maisha, nina imani nawe.
Wow.
Interesting.